Hello everyone, welcome back to another Lightroom session. Glad you could join. As normal, we're going to give it a minute or two for everybody to join. Good, everything is looking good. Thanks for joining tonight. Tonight's going to be a pretty quick session, I think, or shorter than usual. We're talking about exporting and sharing. So exporting, we're going to look at things like exporting your image for either printing, using on websites, using in other places, you may be sharing to social media. So we'll look at how Lightroom handles that. How do we export? What settings can we use to export? File formats, quality settings, sharpening settings. We'll look at all these different things for exporting. And then we're also going to look at the new Lightroom cloud-based sharing system, so you can actually share images with somebody with a link so they can open up a browser and get to those images. We'll have a look at how that system works and what options we've got in that system. And it shouldn't take too long. We're not actually editing tonight. We're just looking at all these export and sharing options. How do you share with people? How do you get things out of Lightroom to either print or use them in other places? Okay, we're going to give it another minute or so just for people to catch up and join. Just like previous sessions, if you've got any questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. If you can think of anything, export, file formats, quality, yeah, anything along those lines, I'm happy if you even drop some questions in the chat now. I'll make sure to answer those as we go along. Hi, welcome, Colette. Good. In a second or two, we're gonna slowly start and hop into sharing and exporting. Hi, Oscar. How are you? Good. I see people joining, so we're almost starting. Exporting and sharing. That's especially on the sharing side. That's a real benefit of the new Lightroom, the new cloud-based Lightroom, is you can actually share images with people from anywhere in the world, really. So if you've got clients for your photography, it's a really nice way of getting their images to them. And we'll have a look at how that system works. Also exporting for printing, exporting to social media, anything like that. It's all built into the new Lightroom. So we'll have a look at all our options there. Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining. Great. I think we will we'll make a slow start, and anybody who joins, they can just catch up with us. Great. I'm going to share my iPad screen. I'm going to be doing the sharing and exporting from my iPad. I'm doing that also because all the basic exports and sharing functions are available on the mobile devices, and they might be a little bit more tricky to find. The normal export and getting files saved out to your hard drive options on Lightroom on your laptop or on your PC, those options are very similar to what they are in the older Lightroom. So finding them and navigating them on the mobile version is a little bit new, especially for people swapping over from the old Lightroom Classic to the newer, what's now just called Lightroom, the cloud-based one. So yeah, so I think it's the best place to look at it is on a mobile device. So we're going to be looking at my iPad, and then probably I'll also hop into my laptop and show you the view when maybe you're sharing images with a family member or with a client, and I'll show you what they will be seeing on their side when they open those links that you'll be sending them. Okay, let's look at my iPad. Good stuff. I've got a couple of images that we edited in the last session, so they might look familiar. So this is typically the workflow. So we start off with getting all our images into Lightroom, getting them organized in folders and albums. Then we edit them. We use our batch editing techniques. We use our preset building techniques, everything that we've done before. So we've fixed everything. We've edited our images. We've selected the ones we want to keep. Now we're right at the end of this process, and this is the exciting part. Now we get to do something with these images. We get to share them with other people. We get to print them. We get to share them to social media. Whatever we need to do with these images, put them on our website. That's where we're focusing on today. And just a little note there, Personally, I think not enough people are actually printing images. I think it's just the world we live in. All our photos tend to live on our phones or on external hard drives, and I really think we don't print enough. It's something that's sort of lost. If you're shooting on film, if you're doing a lot of film photography, or at least if you were before digital cameras came along, we all were used to having prints made. We had our film developed, we made prints of those, and we had physical photos that we could look at. And now we're sort of skipping that. Even when I'm even guilty myself. Even when I use old film cameras, I get it scanned, and I then to put the scanned images into Lightroom, and I keep them there. And I don't print enough of these images. So one of my 2022 resolutions for the year is to print more, and I've started doing that, and I'm really enjoying it. So I think it's definitely something that's a bit underrated, is printing these days. So whether you go to your local print shop, or if you can print yourself, that's also great. I would just encourage you to actually print some of your images. Look at physical printed images. It's always nice to hold something in your hand or have something hanging on the wall. Okay, now let's have a look at how we actually get stuff out of Lightroom and do other things with these images. So I'm going to just open one image. I'm just going to pick any one of these. Let's pick this one. So I've got one image open, and already I've got the very easy option of sharing or exporting. And the first option we've got is just the little button right here in the top corner. So if I click this little button, it's got a little arrow that's pointing up. You'll find it on the mobile version on phones and tablets. So I'm clicking that. That's the export button or the sharing button. And now I've got all the different options. Okay. If you're going straight to social media, you can skip saving it out. You can just share it from Lightroom mobile on your phone or on your tablet straight to whichever social media app you want to share it to. So I'll give you a little example. So if I click share to right at the top, it's going to download the image, and it's going to give me a lot of apps that's on my phone or on my iPad, like Instagram, for instance, and I can share it straight out. I can share it straight out to email, for instance, or MailChimp to do a mailing thing. I could export it to Photoshop to do some further editing, maybe to my website, WordPress. So if you've got social media apps like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these things installed on your phone, you'll find them here in this list, and you can go straight there and share them with somebody. You can also, this is my iPad, I don't have WhatsApp on it, but if it's a phone, you can also share straight to WhatsApp to a group, or a group like Joburg Photowalkers. That's always nice after a walk to share an image or two. So you can go straight from Lightroom straight to that app. You don't have to save anything in between. Okay, that's our first option. You'll see a couple of options here at the bottom as well. I can also do something like copy, so it will copy this image. I can go to a document or maybe a PowerPoint slideshow or something and paste that image in there if I wanted to do it. I could copy it to an email if I wanted to. The save image option that you see here, that will actually save it to my normal camera roll on my device. So it goes where all your normal photos are stored on your device. I could, if my device is connected to a printer, so if I had a Wi-Fi capable printer, I could print it straight from Lightroom from my mobile device. So that's quite nice. I could even open something in Lightroom on my phone and go straight to print if my printer supports printing over Wi-Fi. To do that. There's a few other places I could save it. I could save it to my file system on my device, put it on cloud storage, maybe share it to something like Dropbox or wherever I need to put the image. So that's straight out. The one thing that you need to remember if you are using this sharing option, so let's just go back, this sharing button, that sharing button right there. If I click it, it just goes out with the normal default JPEG. So that it implements the default settings for a JPEG, and it's something like 80% quality if I remember correctly, and it just exports that image. You've got no control of what settings are used to export. So quality settings, file size, file extension, what type of file it is, that's the extension part. Things like sharpening, you can't do anything else. It just takes the image as it is, as the edit is, and it exports that default JPEG so that you can quickly share it. Okay. If you need a bit more control over what you're exporting, then the better place to go is right here in the corner. We've got our 3 dots, that expanded menu that we can open up. Okay, let's open it. Now in this little menu, no, sorry, no, it's not, sorry. Actually under the same little button, but instead of pressing that first option where we've got share to, I'm actually just canceling out of this. I'm going to go back to that share button, and the very bottom option is what we're looking for. This is what's going to give us a lot more sharing options. So you'll see it says export as. The top one says share to. So if you quickly want to go to something like social media or WhatsApp or something, the share to is the place to go. This bottom one gives you a lot more options. But because it gives you a lot more options, it will take a little bit more time. Just tweak the options the way you want. So this is a bit more involved, but you've got more control of what's going out of Lightroom. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing. We go share button, then we go export as, and we get this nice little menu. So now we've got a lot more options as to what we're exporting and how we're doing this export. Okay, so just adjust my, there we go. Okay, so the very first option we've got is file type. So we can export the original. If I select original, it's going to export my original file unedited, no edits on it. That's whatever I imported into Lightroom. So generally that's the file that came off your camera. That file is going to be exported. If you imported a raw image, it's going to export a raw image, the exact same raw image that you brought into Lightroom. Okay. Then the next option is JPEG. The JPEG option is what we normally use for images. It's a compressed file format, so it compresses it a bit smaller than the original image. And also this JPEG is going to be your edited image. So anything that you changed in Lightroom that you edited on that image, this is going to be the JPEG you're exporting. And for most users, JPEG is actually what you want to be exporting. It's a little bit of a smaller file size. It's easier to work with. And we will be able to set quality settings, but for the higher quality settings, there really won't be any difference. The compression is not really going to show in your image. You'll have really good quality image. Okay. Then our next option is TIFF. TIFF images are uncompressed image files. So if you really want the best possible largest image out of Lightroom, you can save a TIFF file out. Generally, you wouldn't need to do this at all. Even if you're sending images for maybe printing a magazine or something like that, a high quality JPEG is generally perfectly fine for them. They wouldn't need TIFF files. Even if you're doing large scale printing, generally you wouldn't need a TIFF file. Most people, this wouldn't be what you would be exporting, but it's there. Just know that that's your uncompressed best quality file that you can export. But in most cases, if you set your JPEG settings correctly, you won't be able to see the difference really between a TIFF file and a JPEG file. Okay. Next option is DNG. So if you want to be exporting maybe for editing later in Photoshop or in other image editing or retouching programs, you might want to export the DNG. That will give you good compatibility with further editing in a place like Photoshop. Okay. So generally, in most cases, we would be exporting a JPEG. So let's look at the JPEG options. As soon as I go to JPEG, then I've got some options below that. The next thing is dimension. So this is just the physical size of the image, how many pixels I've got in this image, how many megapixels we've got, and it's based on the longer side. And if I drop down this menu, you'll see we've got largest available dimensions. So what this will export is whatever your image size is, your edited image, so your crop. If you didn't crop, this will be your height and width of whatever your camera sensor or the pixels on there was. So whatever the size of the image your camera saved, the width, how many pixels, the height, how many pixels, that's the largest possible image that it will export if you did not crop in Lightroom. If you cropped closer, if you cropped a piece off, then obviously the largest possible that it will then export is whatever is in that crop. So it won't lose any data. It will give you all the pixels that's in your cropped image. Okay. So this will generally be your best quality or your best size, largest size JPEG that you can then export. If you're going to be posting it to social media, if you're going to be using it on a website, applications like that, then you might want to go for small. It says 2048 pixels, so that's the long side, and that just gives you an image that is smaller in most cases than what your camera would have taken. So very old cameras might be close to this, but any modern digital camera will be many times larger than this. So if you save the small, the 2048 pixels wide, that will give you an image that's manageable and small enough to then quickly upload to social media. And anywhere where you're looking at an image with a phone or a laptop online on a website, this would be more than big enough. So most social media platforms and things will probably even make that smaller to about 800 pixels. So you can see that 2048, even though it's called small, that's plenty of quality. You won't see, if you post it to Facebook or if you post this to WhatsApp, you won't be able to tell the difference between this and a larger image. And in some cases, the platforms won't even allow you to post or to upload the really large images. It will, the upload will fail. So this is a good one if you're going to social media, if you're going to websites, you can save it out as small. And then our last option here, I'm going to click it. It says custom. Then with custom, I can select the long side. So it says long side 1024 pixels. So if I've got a spec for a website, for instance, and it needs to be a specific size, then I can specify what my long size needs to be. So this is about half the size of that small image. Okay. So this is going to be a really quite a small image. But again, for places like Instagram, you could even go down to 800 and you will have full quality on a phone screen. Okay, we're just going to go back to largest available dimensions. So like we said, this is going to give us all the pixels in our image, in the cropped image. Okay, the next one is image quality. So we can select quality. Right at the top, we've got 100%. Now 100% quality JPEG means there's no compression, so it's not compressing the image to make it smaller. Compression, you lose a little bit of image quality or some of the detail that's in the image. So the lower down we go in this list, the more noticeable it will be. If you do image qualities on the lower end of this list, you will see the quality loss in your image. Generally, anything from about a lot of people won't even be able to tell if you go down to 70, but 80 or 90% is a good place to be. If you're going to be printing it, if you're going to be using it in places where you want more detail, 90 is generally a very good place to be. The difference between 90 and 100, you really won't be able to tell. Pretty much nobody will see the difference between 100% JPEG or a 90% JPEG, but what I can tell you is the difference in file size is quite a bit. So if you're going to be sending this on or saving it to an external drive or emailing it or whatever, 100% JPEG is going to be a very large file, whereas 90 already reduces it by quite a bit. And 80% it gets even smaller. As you go down this list, the file size will be smaller, but you'll lose some quality. I hope that makes sense. So maybe if you want your website to load really fast and you're putting images on your website, you might want to go down to 70 and small in dimensions. And if you're going to maybe use it for printing smallish prints, you could go 80%. If you're worried about quality and you're going to print something larger, maybe a canvas or something, you might want to go to 90%. Okay? And in most cases, 100% is not really necessary. And in that case, where you really want the top quality, a TIFF file, saving a TIFF file and not a JPEG is probably going to be your option. Okay, so you'll see that it defaulted to 80% on my Lightroom. I think that's a default setting when you install it. That's a good place to be. Okay, so we'll leave it on 90%. Then we can switch on watermark on or off, and we can customize the watermark. Okay, so let's go back. There's a little button where we can switch watermark on and off. So that's the little watermark with your name or your signature or your logo or something that you put in the corner if you want to do that. I'm not a fan of watermarks, but if you think it's necessary for where you're going to be posting your image, you want your company details there or your name there, you could do that. So you switch this on for watermark, you click on customize, and it opens up the customization. Now you can decide where you want it. So you can change the text. So that's just the text that's going to appear in the image or on top of the image. Okay. You can also go for a graphic and upload your logo. So you can upload a logo into Lightroom and it will put your company logo or your photography logo or something in the corner there. Maybe a signature if you want to do that. I've seen people just write their name. And you can make it your logo. Whatever you want to do, you can do that. I'm going back to the text one. Then you can choose where it's going on the image. So we're just clicking in the middle or the bottom right or the top right. We can tell Lightroom where to put this little website address that it's actually watermarking onto the image. Okay. Then we've got some text options. We can make it bold. We can change the font. All the normal little text options you would find. We can make it black. So this button makes it black. If you've got an image that's a lot of white or light colors, you might want to make the writing black so it's nice and visible. You can make it white. So if you've got a dark background where that logo is going, in my case, there's a street there, so it's pretty black. And I might want it white. You can include a shadow, so it will put a little shadow on your text. You can change the size, make it bigger, smaller. You can change the opacity. So right now it's a little bit translucent. The image will come through a tiny bit, so it's at 80%. At 100%, it's completely opaque, so none of the background image will come through that lettering. And you can offset it, move it around vertically or horizontally, depending on where you choose to put your image. You can move it up and down or left and right. Okay. We're just going back. I'm going to switch watermark off. I don't necessarily want a watermark as I export this image. Then more options. In the more options, it gives us a lot of extra control of what is exported. Firstly, we can include the camera metadata. So you would have noticed in places like Lightroom and other editing programs, you'd be able to see the info of your camera. So you'll see, if you open an image, it will tell you what camera it was taken by. If you had an electronic and not a manual lens, it will tell you the lens information. It will tell you your f-stop. It will tell you your ISO. It will tell you your shutter speed. All these settings are saved into the original file by your camera. Lightroom would be able to then tell you what the settings were. In most cases, we don't want metadata to be exported because some cameras, especially mobile phones, will also embed geographical info. So it will actually give you where that image was taken. So if you take an image with your mobile phone in your backyard, your GPS location might be embedded in that image, and you might not want to be sharing that with the world as you share your images. So in most cases, I leave metadata off. I wouldn't like other people to see where images were taken, or necessarily what my settings and camera and lens and things were. If I'm specifically exporting an image maybe for a photographic competition, they might want the metadata in there. They might want to see your settings. If I'm sharing it with another photographer and the settings are interesting, I might leave it in there. But generally, I would switch it off. But we've got two options. So if I switch my metadata on, that means now it's saving all that extra data into your image file. Then the bottom one of the next two options says location info. That's the actual location you took that image. Especially mobile phones will put that in. Some cameras have got GPSs. Some cameras will actually link with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi to the app on your phone and also embed the location. But most digital cameras, if you haven't set it up, the geographic location won't be in there, but you can switch it on or off right there. Okay, I'm going to switch it off. Then you can leave your camera and the raw image data in there if you want, or you can switch that on or off. Okay, what I'm going to do is just switch the whole lot off in this case. That's my default export. Okay, then the next option is what's going to be the file name. As I export this, what's the file name going to be? If I leave it at original, it's going to have the exact same file name that my camera originally named that file that it wrote to that SD card. Okay, so that's the file name right there. I can do a custom file name, so I can give it my own name. It can also do a date file name, so it will use the date and the time that image was taken and use that for the file name. I'm happy with original. Very often I might send something off or save something out, maybe send a file to somebody, or I would save it to my hard drive to upload to a website or something, and that file name being the original file name my camera called it means I can actually go back to Lightroom if I need to re-edit something or find a file again. I can just search for it and I will find the original raw file again. So for me, original is good. Now, a very interesting setting, and this is one that's very handy in Lightroom when you're exporting. Right here we've got output sharpening. Okay, so previously we looked at sharpening of our image. Inside of Lightroom we sharpen certain areas, we sharpen things that we wanted to get more sharpness in our image. Now we've got our image the way we want it looking on our screen, but what Lightroom and what a lot of professionals prefer is doing output sharpening. So it's sharpening when you're saving this file out, extra sharpening to this image. Okay, now we've got three different options there. If we select none, Lightroom will do no extra sharpening. It will apply all the sharpening you did while you edited your image, but it won't sharpen it any more than that. Then we've got screen, we've got matte paper, and we've got glossy paper. And the reason for this is the amount of sharpening that you will actually visibly see on a screen versus what you will see on a printed image is different. And even on matte paper, that's a little bit, got maybe a bit of a texture that's a bit more matte and not glossy. The amount of sharpness you'll see in your image is again different to printing it on glossy paper. So because of these three ways that we generally view images, either on glossy paper, printed glossy, printed on matte paper, or looking at it on a screen like a mobile device, Lightroom has got three settings here for output sharpening, and it will then optimize the amount of sharpening for that way of viewing. So what does that mean for us? If we export this image for screen sharpening and we open it on a phone, and then we export it maybe for glossy paper, we print it on glossy paper and we put it next to each other, these two images would look to our eye to be the same, have the same sharpness. Okay, does that make sense? So if we do no sharpening, we print an image on glossy paper, matte paper, and we look on the screen at the same image, our eye will perceive the sharpness to be different because of the different ways of viewing it. So this is the way of equalizing it. So if we like the sharpness we had when we edited it, and we know we're going to be using it on a website, we will go for screen sharpening. If we know we're printing it, you will go for either matte paper or glossy paper, depending on what you're printing it on, the photo paper that you're using. Okay. Side note there again, I quite like matte paper. Glossy paper is not my most favorite thing to print on, but real quality photo paper, but I generally like the matte versions of it. Some people like the glossy ones, the feel of a glossy image. Anyway, we are moving on. So that's the output sharpening, then the amount. So now we can even, based on what we chose, so if we chose matte paper, the sharpening for matte paper, now we can say just do the standard sharpening that Lightroom would basically normally do for matte paper, or you can say high to get some extra sharpness, or you can say low to have a little bit less sharpness. And this might also depend on your subject in this case. So let's say it is a cityscape or a landscape, you might want to go for high sharpening, so a really sharp image, lots of detail, high sharpening in that case. So you may be printing it, so you go maybe glossy paper, high in that case because of your subject. Maybe it's a portrait, and a portrait you might want a bit less sharpening. You don't want a portrait over sharpened, especially on people's skin. It doesn't look so great, so you might go for low sharpening. But in most cases, I have to say, if you just match the paper or the screen and you go for standard, that will give you a very good starting point and a very good result. If you don't have a real good reason, just leave it on standard. Okay. Color space, we've got a couple of different color spaces. Generally, you don't have to really worry about this. sRGB, just so that you know, that's the default, also the most compatible. So if you're going to be sending this image off to somebody else, you're going to give it to somebody else to use somewhere, if you're posting it somewhere like a website, or even if you're printing it yourself, sRGB is very compatible with lots of devices and lots of places and lots of different pieces of software. So sRGB is a very safe one to export, and generally that's a good one. Once in a while you might find somebody, a client maybe, for a very specific reason, they might ask for Adobe RGB. Adobe RGB just gives you a little bit more color detail. There's just a bit more detail in the color. The range of color is a little bit bigger, and somebody will specifically generally ask for Adobe RGB if they need that. But like I said, if you leave it at sRGB, 99% of the time you'll be happy, and everybody else will be able to open this image. Okay. Display P3 and Pro Photo RGB, that's again variations on the color format that's used for making this image. I know a couple of people say that Pro Photo RGB is really good and the range of colors is really good, but I've never seen in practice, I've never really had the need to use it. So we can leave it at sRGB for what we're doing. Good. Any questions at this stage on exporting images for print or for screen or for different usages? If you've got a question, just pop it in the chat. I'll keep an eye there. Let's go back. Okay, so that's our export as option. I hope that solves that. I hope everybody's up to speed on export as. Okay. So that's where we get all the control. Just a quick recap, this little export button or share button right at the top, the quick share, if you just quickly want to go to another program or social media or send it to somebody quickly on WhatsApp or whatever, this is what we'll use. If you want more control on what you're doing, we're going to export as right here at the bottom. Okay. Let's have a look at some of the other options that we've got here. You can get a link. What does that do? It gives you a shareable link, so you can get a link to this image, and anybody with that link can then open this image on Adobe's cloud server. They'll be able to see this image. Okay, we're going to look at a better solution than just sharing one image, because that's a little bit of a clunky way of sharing an image. Generally, we want to share a couple of images, and there's a better way of doing it. But let's have a look at getting a shareable link. So it's going to create a link for me on Adobe side on their cloud server, and anybody with this link would be able to see this image. The link is right here at the top, and there's a little handy copy button. So it's opening this link right now to this image in my browser. It's going to take a second, and you'll see on adobe.com at the top we've got this image. So anybody who's got this link can then see this image. Not really handy with one image. One image we can just send to somebody generally. And then there's a couple of options, but we're going to see these options just now again when we share multiple images, all the same options, and we'll discuss them then. So I'm just going to go stop sharing and delete. Perfect. Okay, so now it's not shared anymore, and that link doesn't exist, so nobody can see it anymore. Okay, then we can invite people by email. So what that will do is similar to the link, but somebody will get an email, they'll click on a link in that email, and they'll see the image just as we just saw it. Not very useful for one image, but again, as soon as we're sharing multiple images, this would be good. Edit in Photoshop. So if you've got Photoshop also installed on your device, you can click Edit in Photoshop. It will open up this image in Photoshop. You can edit it, and as you close Photoshop, it will come back to Lightroom with those edits and save it inside of Lightroom with your Photoshop edits, which is really handy. So all your images are still in one place in an album in Lightroom, but you can actually edit with an external photo editor like Photoshop. So very handy. In a future session, we will have a look at how to round trip to Photoshop and do some things in Photoshop and come back to Lightroom, finish off the image. Open in. If you've got any other external pieces of software that you might use for image editing, you could open in, and it will open it up in whatever other app you choose. We'll send it to that app and open that app up. Export to camera roll. It goes straight into your camera roll on your device, so it goes to Photos or Google Photos, depending on what device you've got, and it sits right there on your device where all your normal photos would be. Export to files. That's the file system on your device. Again, it just saves it to wherever you choose, maybe a downloads folder or whatever you choose where it should go. Share edit. This is an interesting one. Adobe Lightroom has now got a thing where you can look at other people's edits and see how they edited and what they did to get to a specific edit. So it's like a library of edits. You can go to an image that looks nice to you and see what people did to get that edit. If you're not doing training or for some reason really want to share how you did your edit, you might never use this function. But if you want to see how other people edit images, this is how they do it. Okay. Let's hop into some of the other options. So we've done exporting the file to get it to print, to get it to other places, to other apps. We've done sharing a specific photo. Now the really useful one, and where this Lightroom cloud-based system really shines, if you're taking a lot of images, maybe it was an event and you've got a client that needs to get all these images. You've done some work and you need to share it with somebody, maybe a family member, maybe it was a birthday party, you took a lot of images, you want to share it with a family member or a friend. This is the way we do it. Okay, so I've got quite a few different images here. I can share all of the images right here, but what I prefer to do is I might have some images. Let's say this image I don't really like, and for some reason I don't want to share this one. This is not one of my picks or my selected images. So let's say I go here and I flag it as a reject. So now this one is grayed out. It's a reject. I don't want that. I just want the other images. That's normally how I would sort out images and just edit the ones that I want to deliver to a client. or to a friend or to a family member. And if we look at our album structure here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just click rename. This is a quick way that I normally do it. I click rename on my album. I just select the whole thing. I copy it. I cancel out of it. I create a new album next to the album where all my images are in. So I've got a new album. I click paste, got the same album name, and I just add at the end shared. So now I know this is the one I'm delivering to my client. Okay. So now you'll see I've got this shared folder and there's nothing in. This is the one that I want to, like I said, deliver to somebody else. Go back to my images. I select the images, not that one. I select the images that I want to deliver, and it would be these. And I click here at the bottom, it says add to. I click add to, click the shared album. Now I've got 6 images, as you can see on the top album right there. I've only got 5, so I didn't copy the one image that I didn't want to give to my client. So all the images right here, I've got 5 images. All of these 5 images I'm happy sharing with my client, okay, or family member, whoever I want to share it with. The easy way to do it now is right here, top right, there's a little icon of a person with a plus, and that means add people to this album. So right here, I'm going to click add people to this album. Gives me share and invite. Now there's 2 ways I can share this. I can share a link, or I can share by email address. So generally the best way is just to put somebody's email address in here. Let's say I'm putting my work email address in here, and I can press send. Now I will actually get an email on my normal email address, and it will have a link, and that link will contain this album on Adobe server. Okay, so that's quite nice. We can also go and click this little drop down next to the person's name. I can remove them if I wanted to from this album, so they can't get back in. If for some reason you gave access to 5 people and somebody moved companies, you can go and take that one person off. Then they don't have access to these images anymore. The top option says can view. The next one says can contribute. The next one says can edit and contribute. What does that mean? Generally, if it's a client, a family member, a friend, and you want to share images with them, can view is what you want. You can also set up can view so that they can download the images. We'll see that just now. Can contribute means they can actually add their own images to this album. So let's say you were 2 or 3 photographers at an event. The other photographers, if you invite them and put them under can contribute, they would be able to add images into this album, and everybody's images would be in one spot. Okay. If you go can edit and contribute, that means they can edit your images in this this album with Lightroom. So the only time you really want to do this is if you've got somebody who's editing your images. So you're a professional photographer taking some studio images, and you've got a separate company or a person who's actually editing the images before you deliver them. You're not editing them yourself. Then you can go for can edit and contribute, and whoever is editing your images can then go in and edit them. Okay. So generally can view is where you want to be. Good. This is our little share and invite menu, and again we get to it by pressing this little button there. We'll see the same menu pop up. The very first option is get shareable link. If you just want to send somebody a link to that album, they'll be able to open the album by clicking on that link. Your link access is either invite only or anyone can view. If you set it to anybody can view, so anybody with that link, you can send that link to a lot of people and they can send it to more people. Anybody who's got that link, if they click on it, this album will open up. Okay. If you put it to invite only, it means that only somebody who you invited by email can open this up. They will need to log in with an Adobe account. So they can create a free account. Most people have already got an Adobe account because they've got PDF, Adobe Acrobat Reader normally downloaded. They might have an account already with Adobe, or they can just create a free one. That email address needs to match the one you used for the invite, and they can then see the images. So it's a private album that only you and they can see, because they have to log in to the Adobe system to be able to view it. Okay. Next one is the members. We're back here where we can see who's got access. We can see all the members of this album. The link settings is very handy. We can show metadata, so all our settings, the GPS coordinates, all those things that we spoke of earlier. Can people see it when they're browsing this album? I generally want it off. This is your location data. The top metadata one would be your camera settings, the camera model, the lens, these things. So we'll switch that off as well. Allow comments and likes. So this little button, if it is active, if it's on, people can then comment or like your images inside of this album. This is really handy if a client maybe needs to select 5 images for printing, or if they want something changed in the edit maybe, so they can then comment and say, can you please fix something on this? Or they can say, I like this one, please print this one. They can just like a couple of images if you agreed those are the ones you're going to be printing or using on the website, whatever you're doing. So that's a nice little option you've got there. Allow comments and likes. If you've got a lot of people who've got access to the same one, you don't want people to see this, then you can just switch it off. This one is a very important one. This one says allow JPEG downloads. Without this switched on, people won't be able to download that image. They can see them. If the comments are on, they can like and comment on them, but they can't download them with that switch off. Okay. So they can browse them, they can look at them, they can see them, they can give you feedback, but they can't download them off the Adobe server. Yes, on a computer browser, you can right click and save that image that's displayed, but it's a low resolution, bad quality image that they won't be able to use or print. Okay. If you switch this on, allow JPEG downloads, now they'll be able to download this edited image off of that album. They can either download all, or they can download specific images, and they can use them, print them, do whatever they need with them. Okay, so if you're delivering images to a client, they've already paid, you want this on so that your client can actually get their images from the Adobe server. All right. And then this last little button says allow access request. I've had it before where somebody might give me an email address and I send the invite link and they can see their images, and then they forward that email to a family member or to somebody who's working with them or to their website developer or to their graphic designer who's doing the magazine layout, and that person clicks on the link. They can't get into the album because I only shared it, I limited it and shared it only to that one email address, the first email address. What happens now? When this new person tries to log in, I get an email. It says this person, name and surname with this email address, is trying to log in. Do you want to give them access? If I know it's a graphic designer maybe working with them or another family member or whatever, I can just accept it. And now there's 2 people with access to that album. If you switch this off, you'll never see that request, and nobody that you didn't load can get access. What you have to remember as well with this is if you're sharing with clients or friends or family, some people have more than one email address. You might be sharing it to one email address, but when they open up the Adobe website, they might log in with a different one, and maybe a work email address versus a personal one. So if they've got 2 email addresses and they log into Adobe with the other one, you will still get the request if this is switched on, and you can give them access on the alternative email address. It just makes it easier for people to get into the album. People don't want to struggle getting to see the images that you took. Okay, so this is a good one to keep on. Now, let's switch that off. Let's switch comments off for now. We can leave it on. And that's how we've set it up. Right now, only somebody with the correct email address that I invite will be able to get in. I can open it up with this option, link access. Let's do it. I can go, anyone can view. So now anybody with that, anybody with this link will be able to see this album. I'll show you how it works now and what your client will see. Let's just go back to Lightroom before we do that. We've got a question of Lightroom Classic. Is it all the same? No. So your export options for individual files, when you're exporting for printing, when you're exporting to save something, maybe to upload to a website, Lightroom Classic will be the same. Yes, if you're saving a file to your hard drive and you're going to be doing something else, you've still got options for sharpening, output sharpening, the sizing, custom sizing, all those options that we had right at the beginning for exporting. You'll have all of those. The new Lightroom has got the options for exporting to specific apps, maybe like WhatsApp, straight directly on your phone. And also these shared folders with customers is, it's based around the new Lightroom ecosystem. So what I showed you now is basically the way the new Lightroom works. So the Lightroom cloud-based one. Okay, hope that makes sense. Okay, so basically the main difference between Lightroom Classic and the new Lightroom is the new Lightroom is more cloud-based. So your images go up to Adobe Cloud. It's backed up there and you can share it from there, and also access with multiple devices to get to your images. You can get to them from your phone. You can get to your images from different places. Even in a web browser, you can get to your images. Where Classic basically stores it on your actual machine. Your database of images is on your actual machine, or you can connect an external hard drive and tell it to actually save everything to that external hard drive. So in that case, all your images are with you on your machine. And yes, the Lightroom Classic has now got some support for the cloud, and you might be able to move things between the two Lightroom versions, but it's not sort of core and the way it works. The new Lightroom is built around this cloud version of Adobe Cloud, what they call it. Okay. So I've set it to anybody can view, which means with this little link at the top, if I click that link, I'm going to be opening a browser. This is my internet browser, and with this in my internet browser, this is what a client will see. So anybody who's got this link, if I shared this link, maybe I sent an email with this link, I copied it and sent a WhatsApp with this link, whichever way I gave this link to my client, this is what they will be seeing, is a page like this. Okay, they can click on an image. So I've got 5 images here. They might be interested in this one. They could go to comments. They have to be signed in to actually comment or like, but they can see the image at least. They can also click the little 3 dots in the corner. I did not switch out. Let me go back to Lightroom and show you the difference. So right now they can't download it. They can look at the images. If they're logged in, they can comment on them, but they can't download any of these images. Okay. If your Lightroom album is set with the link settings to allow JPEG downloads, and we go back to the browser there, you will see that now if I open an image, I can actually get a download option there under the 3 dots. If I go back to the whole album where we can see all of it, there's also the little 3 dots there, and I can download photos, which means it will download everything in this album all at once to their own machine wherever they are across the world or whatever. And also they can press the play button and see a little slideshow of their images that you shared with them. Okay, so that's actually quite a nice way of getting your images shared with a client or a family member or a friend, so you can actually share all these images with them. Let's go back. Let me just switch the downloads off. So under view options, oh, that's not the one. We can go under sharing. We can go to link settings. and now they won't be able to download the images again. So that's just a handy little way of sharing your images. Yeah, it's all online, it's all on Adobe's cloud server, and it serves as both your backup, so if something happens with your machine, you've still got your images on Adobe Cloud, but it also serves as a way of sharing all these images with other people and clients and friends and family. And I think in the new Lightroom, this is a really helpful and useful tool that personally I use every couple of days with sharing photo shoots with clients. Okay. Any other questions on sharing and exporting, or just the process of working with clients in Lightroom and getting the images to them? If anybody's interested in or if anybody does this professionally or works with clients or with family, or if you've got any questions about how it works and the workflow there. Great. Great. Yeah, so as you saw, just in summary, being able to share to all these different places very quickly and easily, even from your Lightroom on your phone or on your iPad or on your laptop. It's sort of the new Lightroom. It's front and center. It's built into it. It's made to be able to share your images out. It's not supposed to just sit somewhere. You can easily get your images out, whether you're printing, whether you're sharing to social media, WhatsApp, email, websites. It's built to be able to integrate into all of these places, and also to share with other people, sharing albums, sharing individual images, getting them to download high resolution, high quality images from the Adobe Cloud that they can then use or print or show to their friends or whatever needs to be done. So yeah, for instance, if it was a shoot for a new website that's being built or something, you could then share this whole album with a graphic designer, and they've got access to all the images. They can pick the ones they want, they can download them, use them on the site. They could be other side of the world. So it's a nice handy way of getting images to customers. Okay, any more questions? Otherwise we're going to call it a night. Thank you for joining. Always appreciate it. I know it's load shedding, I know it's all sorts of things, and yeah, we're back there. So I appreciate it if anybody joins, or when everybody joins. And I also noticed that a lot of people are watching these sessions throughout the week. So that's also good. That's always available. I'll send out the links again. It's available on the channel. So if anybody's missed sessions, they can just catch up on the channel. Good. And as always, I'm available also on email and on the WhatsApp group. If you've got any questions on editing or Lightroom or anything similar, workflows through the week, just pop the questions in there. I'm happy to answer them. Great. Have a great evening, everybody. I appreciate you joining. And I will see you next week, hopefully with some less load shedding.